All right, so today we're gonna do a lap joint. Lap joint is our second welding assignment right now. And essentially we're gonna take two pieces of metal, and I've cleaned them up so they're not so rusty, just with the grinder. And I'm going to overlap them about halfway. You can offset them a little bit, and you can get yourself a little bit more weld area, right? Because not only do we have this edge now, but we also have that edge. So instead of maybe just 2 attempts, we can get 4 attempts, because we'll be able to go across this way and then down that way. It gives us a little bit more practice per set of coupons. We're gonna get our welding gear on, get protected, and then we'll be right back. All right, now we're ready. There are a few different types of filler rod that we have in the shop. We have the smaller 1/16, and we have about a medium-sized 3/32. I would think for the thickness that we're using, which is about 1/8 of an inch, that you would want to be using the 3/32, and that's what I'm going to demonstrate with today. We've got a nice, good, sharp point on our tungsten, and I'm going to be using my home machine for this. I have set it up with a clear lens, but don't worry, it's basically the same thing. I have my welder set at about 120 amps right now. We'll see how that works. I might turn it up. First thing though we need to do is we need to tack this in place. Now we haven't done a tack yet, and we're going to touch the metal, lift off, and we're going to use the metal itself to try and fuse it together. All right, cover. Cover. Now that these are tacked together, 2 little welds holding it together. When I normally do a weld, I don't prefer to weld straight in front of me. My wrist does not naturally go that way. So while we're practicing, I will turn my material approximately 40 to 45 degrees. And that way I can actually move my wrist and it comes slightly down at an angle, just like that. And that's the same way I do my beads. I have my filler rod and I feed towards it. This way I'm going to be able to watch the edge of that puddle, and I'm going to be able to feed it. Now when we're doing the lap joint, I want you to focus your tungsten as much as possible on this bottom corner. Not so much the edge or the top corner, but the corner that is closest to the face of the bottom plate. That's really where you want to try and point the tungsten. And because this is the edge of a plate, it will get hotter faster than the middle or inside the edge on the bottom plate. So we do want to favor a little bit towards the bottom plate. This will allow it to heat up at about the same rate that the edge heats up. Once I bridge that gap where I start on my tack, then I can start adding the filler rod in as I go across. I always like to do some dry runs to make sure I'm comfortable with my body position. I think that'll work. Okay, cover. Again, you're just going to try and lead that puddle along and still poke the front of it. When you get to the end, snap out. Make sure that you're covering the puddle and the weld until it either one, the gas stops, or the metal is not red anymore. All right, so there's our lap joint. It's not great, but pretty consistent. And that's all we're trying to go for. Trying to get nice, even spacings between the ripples. Let's go ahead and weld down the other side. Again, we want to try and fill up to the edge, about 120 and 125 amps. Again, just watch the front edge of that puddle. Try and focus on the bottom corner of the top plate, keeping about a 40-degree angle favoring the bottom plate. That way it can get more of the heat. All right, we're definitely pretty hot. I don't have a quench tank here at the shop, but essentially that's your lap joint. After you do your first 4 attempts on the lap joint, 2 on this side and 2 on the other side, I would quench it. I would grab another plate and I just begin to stack and repeat. So I tack it on there and I have 2 attempts on this side, flip it over, and I have 2 more attempts. All right, well now you're ready to do the lap joint. Again, not too difficult. It is what it is. You're overlapping 2 plates on top of each other. Just make sure that even though the plates you pick up might not be the exact same size, that you overlap the 2 plates enough that you're able to get 2 welds on both sides. It's not very effective and useful of our material to make a lap joint like this, where you cannot weld at all on the back side. Make sure you at least overlap them halfway to get more attempt out of it. Offset that a little bit, about a ½ inch on either side. Again, you can mess with different sizes of filler rod if you want, but I do recommend that the fatter filler rod will be easier to fill up the weld all the way. The skinnier filler rod does melt faster and easier, but you actually have to learn how to feed the filler rod quicker with the skinny filler rod versus just being able to place the thicker filler rod in the front of the puddle and allowing it to fill up. All right, it's time to go weld.